Hey everybody, so I've been getting a lot of requests for who I think is going to come back during Season 8 that we haven't seen in a while. Obviously, I included Hodor in that little teaser because of things that Nikolaj Coster-Waldau has been saying, in that we're going to be seeing people that we know with those blue eyes, like meaning the characters will come back or be turned during Season 8 into whites. And if you are finding me for the first time, we do Game of Thrones every week, so be sure to subscribe to get everything. Now, they didn't say who, they didn't spoil anything because they hadn't read their scripts yet. I feel like the number one pick should be pretty obvious. Who would it crush you to see raised as a white? Character that you've grown to love. Now, they could turn characters like Cersei, like Jaime, it'd be big WTF moments. And I'll definitely go down my top 10 list of picks for main characters I think could fit that bill. But just remember that Nikolaj Coster-Waldau said multiple characters. Now, he could also be talking about red shirts in addition to main characters, but he's mostly implying about main characters that you would see as whites that you never would have thought about in that way before. But of the people that we've seen so far die in the North, because those are the only people that the Night King has had access to turn into the Army of the Dead, the biggest, most heartbreaking one would be Hodor, because the last we saw of him was probably one of the best episodes of Game of Thrones of all time. The episode was named literally after the event that gave him his name. It was such a heartbreaking twist. And after that, we were just left to wonder what happened to him. Now, you could believe that Benjen circled back around and took him out, but there was a flood of whites that burst through that door. So I think obviously we're meant to assume that Hodor was taken down by them. And what do they do with their dead? They don't rip them to pieces, they turn them into more fodder for the Army of the Dead. So here's my list of other characters that I think that they could turn into White Walkers during Season 8. And obviously I don't think they're going to do this to every character that dies, even though I do think that a lot of the main characters are going to die. I'll link my death predictions video at the end of this too. But right off the bat, we have to put the Golden Company's elephants at the top of that list. They're at the top of my death predictions list because how cool would it be to see an undead elephant walking around next to the undead giants? I know we still haven't found out if 1-1 is one of those because he was buried south of the wall. So technically, unless this was a vision of the future, this has to be some other giant that they took down in the north. But I've gotten so many questions about Beric Dondarrion in the Mountain because they've already been raised from the dead through different means. Beric Dondarrion is a white raised by fire, as George R. R. Martin explains it, and the Mountain is a white that's raised by science. So I know a lot of you did ask me in my last video if the Night King could control the Mountain because he's undead. No, I don't think that he can, and even though I do think that the Hound will be able to take the Mountain down, I think it'd be a little redundant to see the Mountain turned into a white, controlled by the Night King, and then have him kill a bunch of people. Like, he's already doing that right now. It should go without saying that a large portion of the northern armies and the Golden Company, anybody that goes to the north and is sort of like a red shirt, is going to be turned into the Army of the Dead.
Without cocks. You wouldn't find me fighting in an army if I had no cock.
Beric and Tormund were status undetermined at the end of the season. The wall came down, but there are a number of ways that they could have gotten out, either running the other way across the wall in time, or making it down into a boat out into the bay before the Army of the Dead passed through the wall. Either way, I think they're fine. Beric is too important, he's too powerful to go down off-screen. And Tormund is actually still growing out his long beard, the actor in real life. So you remember Kit Harington hair watch between Season 5 and Season 6, like, if he's not doing Game of Thrones anymore, then why is he keeping that long hair? Why doesn't he trim it a little bit? But the same thing is now happening with the actor that plays Tormund. So as long as he has that giant beard, he is probably still playing the character, meaning that he's coming back and he's safe. So even though logically he should be part of the Army of the Dead after this big scene here, I think he'll survive. And he feels like one of those Bronn characters that they make use of so well. Like, he just works so well with the other characters. They try to keep him around as long as possible. But I know a lot of you have been asking about Ned Stark, the people in the crypts at Winterfell. Anyone who's died south of the wall or anyone close to the Stark family has probably been burned by Jon Snow, so it will be impossible to bring them back. And the idea of Ned Stark's skeleton walking around swinging a sword just feels too ridiculous. But really, I think the main characters that are most likely to be turned into the Army of the Dead are people that are fighting on the front lines. So like Grey Worm, I think that he's really high on the list of potential people that the Night King will turn, because they've really been pushing his character the last couple of seasons. But relatively speaking, aside from being the general of Daenerys' armies, is not that big of a character in the grand scope. I think like Jaime is coming and he has a lot of those general skills. So anytime there's duplication of powers, the bigger character usually gets favored. So Jaime over Grey Worm being turned into a white. But the real question, I think, is if priests of the Red God like Melisandre or even Beric could be turned into whites if they were killed. I think that Melisandre could, but it's almost like Beric is a creature of pure fire at this point. So I guess there is a small chance, because you have to assume that if the dragons are fire-made flesh and they can be turned into whites, then if Beric is just cut from that same cloth, then he could be turned into one too. But if there are going to be any Deus Ex Machina, then I just hope that he gets incinerated by either dragon fire or he himself bursts into flames by the power of the Red God before somebody could turn him into a white. So I know I'm leaving Euron Greyjoy and some of the other characters off the list that are spending most of their time in the south, because Euron's going to be ferrying the Golden Company over, and he's largely going to be part of Theon's story. I think Theon will get the pleasure of killing him, and if it happens that far south, then I think the chances of him being added to the Army of the Dead are really small. So really after that, all you have is Jorah and like the other red shirts that you might not remember the names of that died in the last couple of episodes of Season 7. Like all those supporting characters that went north of the Wall with the Magnificent Seven that ended up dying. But I should add some of the direwolves to the list. Now there's Ghost and Nymeria. They're really the only ones that are left. And just because I love Ghost so much, I'll put Nymeria a little higher on the list. Because Arya just has that crazy bloodlust, and Nymeria is cut from the same cloth, like they share that bond. So even though I'm expecting with that $15 million budget for them to bring the direwolves back, I think we'll see Nymeria added to the Army of the Dead. And we should actually remember that Summer died defending Bran as they were trying to escape from the tree. So technically, Summer should be part of the Army of the Dead too. But let me know in the comments, who are the main characters you think we'll see as whites during Season 8? Whether they died last season north of the Wall and we haven't seen them since, or the people that will die in the north in the initial battles, like the people up at the Last Hearth or the people at the Carhold. But what'll happen is I'll do a new Q&A video next week. The Rick and Morty finale is happening tonight, so obviously that video will post next, but just leave all your questions you want me to include in that Q&A in the comments below. And there is a new round of the giveaway. All you have to do to enter is just be a subscriber, leave a comment on the video. Congratulations to the winner from the last video. It's a trap. Please private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. While you wait for everything, click here for brand new Game of Thrones, and you can click here for brand new Rick and Morty. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.